Welcome to the Career Coffee Chat podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Urban, certified career strategist and executive coach, removing career roadblocks so you can achieve more impact, influence, and income. Welcome to Career Coffee Chat Live. I'm your host, Aaron Urban. I'm super excited to see you today. And today we'll be having a sexy money talk on our show. Career Coffee Chat show is nearing its 100th episode. Woohoo! On LinkedIn. I'm very excited to have you join us today. As you tune in, say hi, say where you're from. I want to welcome you to the show. I want you to come on in, be comfortable, pull up a chair, say hi, ask your questions, because this is what we're here for. Career Coffee Chat show exists for you, my friends. So welcome to the show. Already see somebody popping in. Hi, David. Good to see you. David Eames tuning in from YouTube today. And we are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook simultaneously. So give me a thumbs up if you're out there today. And if you've never seen my smiling face before, I'm Aaron Urban, or Coach E Urban. You can find out more about me at CoachEUrban.com and more about the transformation coaching I provide leaders and teams. So remember to check also the easy for me to say, the Career Coffee Chat show on your favorite podcast channel, and give us a thumbs up, a star rating, feedback. Your thoughts matter, my friends. And speaking of thoughts, when we were setting up the show with my outstanding guest, Claire Hunsaker, she said, well, I'd like to talk about benefits, and they aren't exactly sexy. Well, I disagree. Who says financial planning isn't sexy? I think that making smart financial moves and empower you and your family is super sexy. So if you agree and you feel the same way, come on in to hear what Claire has to say. Now, she's a certified financial professional. I probably got that wrong, and she'll correct me because, financial, I just shared with her before we started the show, I'm really smart in a lot of areas and really savvy in a lot of areas, but for whatever reason, I don't have a wealth of knowledge about wealth. So I'm really excited to have her on and hear what she has to say about how to thrive during turbulent times and make your money work for you and make the most from your benefits, which is coming up soon in October. It'll be here before you know it. And you know what I'm talking about, that last minute. Oh my God, we have to choose benefits. What do we do? Ah! That's usually what happens in my household. So let's talk about how to thrive through inflation on a budget, how to ensure financial security during relationship meltdowns, and make the most of your benefits and make your money work for you, because open enrollment is coming soon. And discover what you might be missing to make that money work for you. Again, I keep saying that. Why do I keep saying that? Because a lot of people don't know how to do that. Okay. Now, more about Claire. She's a personal finance expert and CEO at AskFlossie.com. Check her out. She delivers free, trusted financial guidance for unmarried women and single moms. She has an MBA from Stanford, is a chartered financial consultant, and serves as a volunteer tax preparer with the IRS VITA or VITA program with advanced certifications. So I want to say hi to Jason tuning in. Great to see you. And let's welcome Claire to the show. Claire, it's good to have you.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Aaron.
Yay. See what I mean? So it's really interesting. Those of you, my friends who are tuning into this show, whether you're watching now live or later, when my guests come on, I just prepare them. Okay, you're going to hang out in the green room. You're going to see and hear everything, because I have to go through this spiel before the show, and it is a lot. So I'm really happy to have you on the show, Claire, and talk about these things that I'm just a little, I won't say clueless, but I would have to admit that I'm not as savvy in the money area.
I think a lot of people feel intimidated by it. I certainly did. That's one of the reasons I became a tax preparer, is because when I moved into personal finance, it was the area where I felt least comfortable. Mm-hmm. And I was like, the only way I'm getting through that is ripping off the Band-Aid and lobbing myself in. And what I discovered was that it's like second grade math. Like, our whole tax code is second grade math, but 10th grade reading. And you have to hang out through 5 pages of instructions to figure out that 1 + 1 = 2. And so there's a reason it's intimidating, right? We don't make it easy. Our institutions don't make it easy. And frankly, banks and most wealth planners are not incentivized to make it easy. They want to make it a little bit hard so you feel like you need help.
So you need help. That's right. It's job security. Makes
Right.
total sense to me. Makes total sense. Well,
Right.
let me know, those of you tuning in now or later, what do you feel a little intimidated about tax or selecting the right benefits? I mean, some people are like, no, I got it. Me, it's not that I wouldn't say I'm intimidated. It's just that I know enough to know that there's a lot I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And I think the other thing is that a lot of people love to build culture around all the things you could be doing. You could be doing crypto. You could be doing options arbitrage. None of it matters. Like, it's very much the 80-20 rule that we see in business, is that most of the stuff that is going to make you wealthy is simple, and there's not that many pieces to it.
That's what I've noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons it's so important to talk about open enrollment is it because the least sexy thing to talk about is insurance, but insurance mitigates so much financial risk that it protects your ability to build wealth. I think of it as that I don't sell insurance, which is why I talk about it, because most people who talk about insurance sell it. I think it's really, really important to build that foundation, and open enrollment's a great opportunity, but you have this opportunity whenever to really think through, what do I want to protect? What is the foundation I want to build on? And how much risk am I comfortable with?
True. Yeah, true. And I'll share, it's a true story, because I made my husband double his life insurance.
Yeah.
And the reason I did that is because, well, for those of you who know me, I'm a cyclist. I'm an avid cyclist, and so is my husband. And he started doing some pretty high risk endurance cycling events, and was doing some events that I felt that did put his life in danger. I mean, he was in harm's way. I mean, you're cycling, if any of you are familiar with Houston, Texas, when you're cycling in rush hour traffic through Houston, Texas, at about 35 miles per hour on a bike, and even if you're in a group, it's dangerous. So I said, okay, you want to do this fine. And in order for me not to freak out totally, because, he's his own person. He has to have his own life and make his own decisions. He's an adult. And I'm not going to be his mama and tell him he can't do something. I will, however, voice my opinion in a logical way, and also require that if you're going to do this, in order for us to be covered financially, you need to have your life insurance, buddy.
It's really important. And it's also like, term life is great because it's relatively cheap. You can get $1 million of coverage if you're healthy for not a couple $100, but $500 or $600. And it's a fantastic way to leverage generational wealth, right? It means that you instantly have tax-free money at death that can go to anything that you think is important. And that could be your kids. It could be your extended family. It could be organizations within your community. It is this amazing, like, high leverage wealth creation opportunity that I think a lot of people don't take advantage of. And I think also people who are in blended families post-divorce, it's even more important, because there tend to be rickety pockets in those families where, somebody might have lost quite a lot of their retirement in the divorce settlement process. Well, having a little bit more security through life insurance can help balance some of that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's that, what I call baseline stress.
Right.
It's that stress that exists in the back of our subconscious mind, because that part of our mind doesn't really rest too much. It's always on to a certain degree, and it remembers so much. And what really is going to stress you out, even though you may not think about it every day, it's kind of that baseline vibrational stress.
Completely.
That can, let's just say, make your fuse a little shorter.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Erin. I think a lot of people, I was about to say freak out, but I would say a lot of people feel worry and self-judgment around whether they're making the right financial call. And ultimately, the right financial call is the one that you can live with, right? If maybe you're leaving a little bit of upside on the table because you're not comfortable with the risk associated with being in the stock market right now, or if you are a little overinsured, or if you are, taking a little bit more risk because you want to swing for the fences, you have to live with you, and you are the one who has to live with your decisions, not like some pundit who says this is the right thing to do. One example I love to use is that, there's some people who there's a lot, the traditional dogma on how much of savings, how much of an emergency fund should you have is 3 to 6 months. That's very arbitrary, like super, super arbitrary. The data around that says 4.5 months is the median time it's going to take you to find a new job, particularly if you're a woman. And then it's like a month to get paid after that.
Yes.
So
that's true.
But I think also, so on the one hand, some people feel much more comfortable having a lot of cash around. They feel more comfortable with just knowing that there's cash there in case they need it. Other people are looking at 3 to 6 months going, my God, how the hell am I going to get there? And that's also, I think, a challenge of mindset to say $300 is valuable security. $500 is valuable security. $1,000 is valuable security. Every milestone is valuable security. And to focus on building the positive piece of that, your positive relationship to it, so that you're not, struggling with self-judgment or doubt when you're working towards a milestone, right? Everybody's working towards that thing. But ultimately, the right number isn't the dogma number. It's the number that you feel comfortable with every night. And getting yourself comfortable with it is the work as much as the saving is the work.
Absolutely. You hit something on the head there, because I feel like, when we listen to the diatribe or, well-meaning financial advice, or even go to a financial advisor, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes it will be this blanket statement, right? This the average person, wants blah, blah, blah on retirement or what have you. And this is what you should do. Well, you need to make that decision.
Yeah.
And what's comfortable for you. And we're seeing a lot of very interesting changes, particularly in the younger generations. We were talking before we started the show how, our generation and older, we have been kind of stamped into this mold of being to a certain extent. And the younger generations are looking at that going, that doesn't really work for me. Thanks. I'm going to take a lot of vacations. I'm going to, have a gig. I'm going to have my own business. I'm going to do things differently. My success is different to me. And that's the thing. Only you can determine what success is. And the same thing with money. What is enough savings? What risk are you willing to take? What risk aren't you willing to take? It's very personal. And sometimes that has a lot to do with what you saw or experienced or heard when you were growing up.
Absolutely. I think we all come at this with sort of internalized messages. And I'll give you a little bit of background on how I came to financial planning. I started out as an English major, a 2-time English major. I love it. Love reading, love books, loved everything about it. Humanities degree up the wazoo. And then I went into publishing, and I realized that what was most interesting to me about publishing was the business. And so I have had a 25-year career in various forms of business, including going to Stanford Business School and working in a lot of high-growth tech startups. And I made my nut and I left, and I got to think deeply about what I really care about. And throughout that whole time, because I'd been raised by a single mom, because I was, I think, exposed very early on directly to how finance works.
Right.
I got my hands wet early, and I got to work through a lot of that stuff early. And I found that I just love it. I absolutely love personal finance. I could read about it and think about it and talk about it all day long. But so I decided that what I really wanted to focus on for the rest of my career is helping close the wealth gap for women. And so I went and retrained. I did all the certification to become a certified financial planner, which is a status that I will hopefully be able to use next year, and also completed additional education to get the Chartered Financial Consultant accreditation. Because I think it's really important to have this balance that we're seeing with this younger generation, where they're bringing in pragmatism, they're bringing in, this understanding that there are different values other than the, I will say the very traditional values that come from personal finance, and how to incorporate that with technical knowledge to get her done. We've got to think deeply about what matters to us. What do we want our money to do for us? And then it's just technical stuff to get it done.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the traditional model has been basically work hard, you save every penny almost,
Right.
and then you get to retire and enjoy it. When the reality is, by the time you get to retirement, if you have that model, well, a lot of people don't really survive to enjoy it. Just being honest. I mean, research
We're seeing this in our house right now. My mother flunked out of retirement 4 times because she didn't know what to do with herself. And now that she's retired, I am fighting with her weekly. I'm like, spend the money. Spend the money. You've been saving.
It becomes a habit.
4 decades.
It becomes a true habit. And you just, it's like so I approach it very differently. I approach this like, okay, we'll save money, we'll do the right things, and we will enjoy our life getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Which means, because I know how I work, I know how my husband works, we don't plan to quit. It's not that we won't have things to do. If we do completely quit business. But as I share with Claire, I quit work. I retired officially from work as of last month. And she's like, congratulations. I was like, yeah, I still do business. I have fun. If it's not fun, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I have the luxury of being able to do that. And that to me is a big gift. Right?
I think one of the redefinitions that we're seeing, particularly post-pandemic, but also generationally, is that wealth is really less about the house or the car or sort of signaling. Maybe a little bit more in Texas. One of the things I loved about Texas is how big my hair was. I had huge blonde hair. I got to wear like big jewelry. It like really turned me into a jewelry person. I love the freedom of expression there. But one of the things that I think we're seeing is this change to a definition of wealth that's about time. And time is the most precious commodity. We get one life. We do not know when it ends. And thinking about, how do we structure our finances such that we're using the time that we have in our lifetime to the way we want is a radical change. It's a totally radical change, and it's values driven, but it requires thinking a little bit more deeply than what we saw in the 80s and 90s with the very traditional, and a little bit even in the first part of this century, with this traditional, one income household. 80% of households with children in them are now double income households.
Right.
So it's, when I had my older son, many people in an older generation asked me if I was going back to work. And I was stunned by that. And then I realized that when they were coming up, when they were my age and they were childbearing, women were legally prevented from coming back to work. It was completely legal to tell a woman, we don't hire moms. So your job is going away, you're fired. And so there was quite a bit of that. And also there weren't structures available for women to work at that time. And I had to get over myself a little bit after being like, have you met me? I've done nothing but work since I was 14. And to really think through what has changed, right? What has changed is that, incomes haven't increased meaningfully in almost 20 years. We're just seeing that now, and everybody's a little alarmed by it. It's been coming for us for 2 decades.
Right.
College got very expensive, so people are still paying off their one or two.
What I've heard is the college debt is so prohibitive now.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a fair amount, but it wasn't astronomical. But if you go to a top school, you're paying that sucker off until you're 40 or 50, and that's just ridiculous. I mean, that's just insane. It's like, what is going on? And in the rise of trade schools, we were also talking about that. We're fortunately seeing a shift in people, hopefully, thinking that the only route's college.
Yep.
It's not. And you can make a whole lot of money as a plumber, by the way.
Right.
A whole lot of money. But I would love to talk really quickly about, you mentioned inflation a little bit. And we haven't seen incomes significantly increase in quite some time, and yet cost of everything keeps going up.
Right.
So I'd love to also hear from anybody tuning in either now or later. What questions do you have about benefits, about, money choices or trends that you're seeing? Because everybody has something. And if you want to message either one of us later, message her if it's money matters. Don't message me.
But please do message me. I'm always happy to answer questions.
Because I'm not a certified anything except a coach. If it's personal, it's transformational, it's inside work, we're good. Otherwise, no. But I'd love to hear more about, what are some of the top things to consider right now when you're looking at this inflationary period? What does that mean?
Yeah.
What are some of the gaps maybe people don't necessarily address?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the inflationary period has actually been coming for us since the start of the pandemic, but it didn't make its way down to the consumer level until early this year, when we started seeing, or late last year, we started seeing real inflation. And so we are on a like aircraft carrier. The thing is going to take a long time to turn around. It's just not the kind of boat that spins on a dime, the economy. And so we need to prepare ourselves to be in a place where incomes are not going to catch up to prices for probably another year and a half. And so it's what they say is that between the time that the Fed starts making moves and inflation really backs off is like 18 months to 2.5 years. So we're looking at, this is our situation for 2020, 2023, and part of 2024, at least. And I think that mindset, that time frame really matters because it helps us think about what are the important decisions. The important decisions are spending, because we do not control prices except en masse. We control prices, but when you go to the supermarket, you can't negotiate chicken. Chicken's up 50%.
I'd like to spend less on this cheese. I'll give you.
Yeah, I'd like to spend less on this cheddar. I don't know. I know A&W is not throughout the world, but I am a chicken tender fiend, and I went to A&W and got my chicken tenders and Diet Pepsi, and it came out to $19, and I just about flipped because that was the first time when I'd seen it hit in a way that wasn't creeping, that it was a way that was like that, and also when gas hit $7 in California. Right. So I would say that we need to be in financial slimness mode. I don't know if there's a good metaphor for it, but this isn't the time to be splashing around. This is a time to be sort of reinforcing foundations, keep our spending well within prices, because prices are going to continue to increase throughout this year and next year. It's only going to get a little bit worse. And to ensure, I know you love income, to make sure that we are de-risking our income, diversifying and growing our income to try to keep up with that inflation. And right now, the economy is in a fantastic place to do that. And unemployment is, I think everyone's looking for unemployment to kind of wobble. And it's just great. It's a great time to be trying to make some money, because everybody needs labor. Right. But one point I want to
ask for a raise too.
Yeah.
It's good time to ask for a raise, because this coming fall, companies will be talking about next year's budget.
Right.
So it's actually a really great time to start having that conversation, because oftentimes people will wait until it's next year or the review time, and that's a little too late. Start having that conversation now. And when you do have that conversation, come with some figures. And what I mean by figures is, don't just go in, well, I work really hard, I need a raise. Or better yet, Angela over here is making more money than me. That doesn't work. So what does work is come in with your value, what you're bringing to the table, in any proposal you have, almost like a business case, where you're going to basically help the company make more revenue or something, some skill, expertise, ideas, what have you. And also come with some contributions. And what have you done? What have you accomplished? Because it's a myth that your direct manager, leader, what have you, remembers. They've got their own thing. They don't remember. So you need to do that for them.
No, you need to give them bullet points they can copy and paste into an email to say, this is why this is justified. And I think your point that you need to do it early is really true. Managers don't control the promotion cycle or the finance cycle. Yeah. It is set for them, and you need to equip them. You need to know what it is and you need to equip them well ahead and get their buy-in well ahead so that
That's
you've
right.
got
Because
someone
oftentimes
supporting
the
you.
way it works, and because I also coach quite a few executives, and they're in this, it's basically like a shooting match. They all get together and they decide who's getting promoted, who isn't, da 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 da, and you have to go to bat.
Yep.
They have this pool of money. They're going to dole it out to someone. So they have to go to bat for you, and getting other people in your corner is really important. So maybe you're having more than one leader going to bat for you. That's good. You want that. It's really, really.
I have been at those tables and thinking through who is going to be at that table. How much do they like you? How much do they see your value? And are they going to go, absolutely, she's crushing it?
Mm-hmm.
You got to line that up early. Because it is a lot. It is where the politics come into it, because there is a finite amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
I want to touch on one more thing about inflation before we move on. Interest rates are going to continue going up, period, right? The Fed.
There goes the housing market.
Huh?
There goes the housing bubble.
Right. There goes the housing bubble. Yeah. But one of the important things is if you have variable interest rate debt, those are going to reset. So if you have a adjustable rate mortgage, understanding what it will adjust to, and what is the maximum it could adjust to. If you're paying off credit card debt, if you have a personal loan that's variable, making sure that either strategizing for that or getting rid of it is a really, really high priority right now. Because the unknown in inflation and recession, we're in a recession, but we're not really in a recession. The important thing is that sometimes interest rates can go bonkers without a lot of warning. And so getting out ahead of your interest rates that could move and your monthly payments that could change, understanding what the cap is, understanding how can you pay it down? Could you get a little more income to really clobber that right now before it gets out of hand? That's a very strong move this year and next year.
Yeah, very, very smart move. I know that one of our properties has an adjustable rate mortgage after a fixed time, so 10 years, and we're well away from that. So we don't have to worry about that now. But if it's something, I would be, okay, what can we do to mitigate this? Do we need to shift some funds around? What do we need to do to get rid of this thing, or refinance maybe? I mean, depending on the rate, because it's really seeing, okay, if I can refinance at a potentially lower rate, if I need to, but then you have the cost of refinancing. So really doing that math and understanding what is going to be the best move for me right now.
100%. And one little trick I want to mention with adjustable rate mortgages is that before they adjust, they're going to readjust against their principal. And so if you have paid down, made some extra payments against the principal, then whatever new rate you're going to be at is going to be at a lower number. It's going to be off a lower number. So one of the things that we've done, two things, we've restructured debt to get rid of that, but we also paid down some variable interest rate debt so that when it recalculated, it actually recalculated to a lower number, not because the interest rate went down, but because we had kind of kicked off enough of the principal to pull it down. And your bank, your loan officer can help you with that. There's also a million spreadsheets online that if you are a spreadsheet person, to monkey with it and figure out where's that threshold, what do you need to do? And often adjustable rate mortgages come with a cap that they can go up in that term. So checking out what the max rate jump is really important.
Right. Good advice. Thank you very much for that. Because a lot of people, gosh, it's been a while now, but it was after 2011 when we had the big housing boom then. And there was all these 5-1 arms and all. I would drive through neighborhoods and I would just see nothing in the house. There was 3 cars in the driveway and it was a massive house. There was not even curtains on the house. I mean, it was insane. It was a very strange period. And that did not serve us in the long run. So Hussein has some information here and I'll probably read. Thank you, Hussein, for sharing this. And I will read that out to folks who are either tuning in later or watching the replay or listening to the podcast. So Hussein has a lot of information. He says financial security is critical to individuals, families, and of course, businesses and entrepreneurs. So everybody. Planning is the basis of success for any business. So you're right, Hussein. We If you don't plan, well, don't complain about the results. In general, when it's financial, includes expenses and savings. So the placement of the plan depends on awareness and social structure. America, Europe, and some Far Eastern countries, such as Japan, China, and South Korea, had that culture, while that may be missing in parts of Asia and Africa. Some of this, I think, got cut off. Hussein. He's so smart. He just has all this information. So thank you for sharing that information. So you're right. It's culture based, a lot of it. And we were talking about that before we started the show, around mindset and culture and what we saw, what our expectations are. And you will see very different savings, money decisions being made depending on your family, what you saw, your approach to it, and then maybe what culture you came from as well. It's very, very different. And your idea of success, too, by the way, is tied oftentimes to that structure as well. So becoming aware of that is extremely empowering, because that allows you to make choices based on you, not
Absolutely.
societal expectations.
And the expectations from your culture can be very different, right? The expectations in my culture were that my mom was running around my college graduation bragging about how that was the last day I was on her dime, and she would be cutting me off immediately upon moving out of the dorm. With glee, I will report. Like, she was so excited to get rid of me off the books. And that's because of the culture. I'm a white woman. I come from a very Protestant background. I come from a Northern European background. That all kind of fits together. People who come from more collectivist societies in Asia, Latin America, Africa, like Hussein's mentioning, the expectations are very different. The expectations are that they're more intermingled, that they are more collective. My husband's family was structured very differently from my family. And I think part of negotiating that is negotiating it with yourself. How am I going to be thinking about this? A wonderful thing that I learned about emergency funds is that for people in Latino culture, very often there's an expectation that they're going to be contributing back to their family. Yeah. Well, how do you set a healthy boundary?
Asian.
Huh?
And Asian as well.
And Asia as well. But I got this from Soledad at Wealth Para Todos. And so one of the things that she mentioned is a loved one fund, and being very clear about what she could fund and what she couldn't fund. Because if her obligations to her family were taking down her ship, it was going to take down everybody.
Right.
And creating some structure around maintaining that value, but also maintaining her ability to serve that value, I think was really a wonderful piece of enlightenment for me, because those conversations are so different in my family.
Right. My family is definitely more of a collaborative approach as well. Having grown up around my great-grandparents, my grandparents, my mother, I mean, the whole nine. So it was a very tight-knit group, and it was more of a communal upbringing than, we're over here and you're over there. So there was kind of an expectation around, okay, when we reach a certain age, we get taken care of. And setting those expectations around, okay, what you can expect me to support and where I'm getting off the bus. Like, what does that look like? And being okay with having those conversations. And it can be very stressful for some people because, again, money can be very emotional. So that's something
I don't think there's anybody who it isn't stressful for. Like, no matter what your background is, it's not like we all get trained on like how to have difficult conversations around money with our loved ones, right? Like, that's not a high school course.
It should be.
It should be. And financial education is like coming into it, but I don't think they're dealing with as much of the emotional side of it. I think something like 37 states have required high school education, financial education, which is great. It's really, really important. But they're not dealing with this piece, which is that, like, how do you learn to talk to the people you are intermingled with, whether that's your siblings or your parents or your partner, your spouse, or your children.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, there's oftentimes a baseline issue going on there, but like our arguments are oftentimes sparked by money, whether it be spending or saving or lack thereof or anything revolving around that. And one of the things that I know my husband and I, particularly because we met later in life, we don't share all of our money is not necessarily commingled. We have a pool fund that we both share, but not everything is commingled. And that way there isn't this stress of, oh, you want to buy all of your favorite band's vinyl records? Really? Okay, where are we putting that? Anyway, that's heavy, right?
Comes down to spatial location rather than the
really,
actual
for me, it's like,
expenditure.
do I have to design another room in the house? I mean, what's going on? Anyway.
No, it's interesting because I think, my husband and I are fully joint, and it was a decision we made before we got married because we had kids before we got married.
Mm-hmm.
And we were also later in life. And so there was a little bit of, figuring it out. I think, there's no right way. It's ultimately, financial decisions are about what makes you feel secure. Like, what can you live with every day that makes you feel comfortable? And I think, for women, I'll mention that because women tend to be lower earners, because we tend to have higher responsibilities for childcare and elder care, we're 40% more likely to take time out of the workforce.
Yes.
So it's really important that we have some baseline financial security and particularly transparency. But at the same time, there's no right or wrong answer around joint or commingled or whatever. It's what works for you. But I will say that one of the things that I had to learn the hard way was that you don't build that skill overnight, right? Like the way my husband and I, 9 years in, talk about money and interact on money and make decisions together as a business is completely different than how it was when we started out, right? When we were on the more candles on the birthday cake end of things than most people, and had our way that we did it, and had to build that skill of collaborating. That collaboration doesn't just magically blossom overnight when you get married. You really have to.
You have to work at it, make it.
You have to work at it.
Make it intentional. And it doesn't matter if you're married or just in a relationship, because in Texas, there is a common law. And if you're with someone, then you're under common law. If you've been, I think it's like 3 or 5 years or something like that. I'm not terribly intimate with that, but I know there is that. And keeping that in mind, also particularly over 2020 and 2021, we saw that some relationships didn't thrive when we were forced to live and work in the same space. And some did, some did not. And it was kind of like the proving ground. So if your relationship didn't thrive, maybe you can share a little bit, Claire, about what to do when things are going south.
Yeah, I think I love how you framed that, like when things start going south, right? Ultimately, the earlier you start thinking about it, everybody feels like they're going to tempt the devil, right? Like, oh God, I don't want to think about it because like that means it's going to happen. It doesn't actually control whether it's going to happen or not. It's going to control whether you have a really awful experience or whether you emerge in a happier, more substantial marriage with better financial security. There's really no downside into thinking through, how do I improve my and our financial security right now in this time that is uncertain or crumbling for my relationship? And there's a couple of things I want to touch on there. The first is credit. If you are experiencing challenges in your relationship, for the love of God, freeze your credit. Go call Experian, go call TransUnion. I use TransUnion. You can use Credit Karma. Freeze it, freeze it, freeze it. The number of people I know who got calls during their divorce proceedings that their soon-to-be former spouse was trying to open up debt in their name is legion. So please, please freeze your credit until you figure it out. If you need to open a card in your own name and set up separate accounts, you can unlock it, make the call, and lock it right back up again. And it gives you some protection from someone. Debt is, one of the things that doesn't get talked about enough in divorce, but,
and it should. I mean,
it should, because
this home for me, particularly my first marriage, did not go so well, obviously.
Yeah, debt gets split up just like other stuff does. And then I think the other piece is transparency. Getting that transparency as early as possible. You don't need every receipt, but you need to know where the accounts are, what the numbers are, what the balance is on a certain day. So if it goes crazy, where money goes from and to, and just write that down.
And I would encourage people to consider having that transparency anyway in a relationship.
Absolutely.
Because I know that in my case, there wasn't in the first marriage. And that individual had let's just say, an interesting approach to debt.
There are
And
70% of women get surprises at death or divorce.
Oh, yeah.
70%.
I had to pretend I was a man and close a lot of credit cards that were in my name because I, at first you think, oh, well, I can just take my name off. No, you can't.
Yeah.
They don't care.
No.
Even if somebody opened it up in your name and it wasn't at your permission, they really don't care. They've now got your name on that account.
Or even if it's in their name, it depending on the state you're in, you could be completely or 50% on the hook for that, depending on what it's used for.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think that there's that transparency. It's also helpful just to have that laid down so that someone can go find the money if anything happens to you, or if, the last thing a grieving person needs to do is go chase down bank account numbers and where the life insurance is and how much it's for.
Right. There's some services out there like LifeLock, I think, and some other types of services. LifeLock may not be the one, but I know there's some that have almost like vaults where you can put in password information, these types of information that is only divulged upon your demise, And of course we don't want to think about that. And it's important to think about that because you don't have necessarily control over these things.
Right. Right. It is important to have that stuff documented, but it's particularly important in divorce because you can summon it, but you need to think about things like, oh, do they have a Venmo balance that they're using to subsidize their girlfriend? Seen that one. Are there charges that are being used to subsidize side activities on a credit card during the process? So having a good baseline sense about what is going on is really important. And then I think particularly for women, having some cash. And my husband knows this, and he also knows where it is, but I am a shameless proponent of the go bag. I know a lot of people, particularly women, who have had to grab whatever cash they could get their hands on at home, grab the kids and go because somebody was spiraling and they weren't in a safe situation.
Right.
And so having some cash around, whatever number feels safe to you, whatever you can come up with, I think you can get a long way on $300. So, it is really, really important, but also because there's knowing how your accounts, when you get that transparency, how your accounts are titled. Is it your account? Is it a joint account? Is it his or her account? So really understanding what you're going to have immediate access to and what access is going to go away like that or could go away like that is really, really important, and making sure you have access to something.
Yes, because there have been instances where individuals have come home from work and not been able to get in their house.
Right. Not been able to get in their house, not been able to get found a zero balance in their
bank account. There was no credit cards. There was everything.
Yeah. And those things don't get exempted from a settlement, but you also can't buy groceries with a settlement that's going to come down in a year. So making sure that you've got a little bit of a cash buffer. And I heard this great quote, I rail on emergency fund dogma because it's sort of arbitrary, but like every person should have 3 to 6 months of emergency fund and 3 to 6 friends they can call who will have their back. Because I think that the reality is, if the proverbial hits the fan, you're gonna need to rely on friends. Right. And so making sure that you've pre-thought that out. And there's a couple of blog posts on my website about how to prepare for divorce, how to think about financial security in advance of divorce, and how to rebuild your finances after divorce, because that's very often a situation that...
certainly a situation for me. I mean, my first, and I'm being very transparent because I want people to know that, hey, I'm wildly successful now. And, there was a time there where I was like, wow, okay, I need to start from scratch. Because I had, in a very early age, in my 20s, I had 2 cars. I had great financial, savings, I had 401k, I had all these things. And then I was a great target for someone who was going to take advantage of all that. They took it all away. It was all gone.
Yeah.
All gone. Everything. Yeah. And what I got out of it was $10,000. That's all I walked away with.
Oh God,
I know, right?
getting a hot
Yeah,
flash just thinking about that.
yeah. 'Cause
The I
I was stupid and and put trust in the wrong place, and I there
well,
wasn't
I mean,
transparency.
that's one of the challenges is that you know in order to trust, you have to figure out trust the hard way. There's no way around that life lesson, you know. But I think that there's also I think I've interviewed and spoken with I am the daughter of divorce. I've never been divorced, but I've seen a fair few of them very close.
Mhm.
And I've interviewed a lot of divorced women, and I have clients who are divorced women. I have pro bono clients who are divorced women. And one of the things that I hear over and over again is that the first part of the journey sucks. It is just awful. It is this horribly gutting experience, but the later parts of the journey are incredibly empowering. And it's this opportunity to build your independence and your capability and your self-esteem in a way that you were not going to have in that marriage. And I think that's true financially, but I think it's also true very broadly.
Right, right. And I would have to say that, still there are, it's shifting, but there are a lot of women who don't necessarily step into the financial knowledge.
Oh,
They,
absolutely.
they don't step into their financial power because they didn't see that when they were growing up. Maybe they don't think it's a priority. And maybe they don't really trust their partner. And that's great. I'm all, wonderful for you.
Mhm.
And you never know.
Yeah, I want to validate that because I think we treat it like it's a low power move for women, but it's actually like complete. People do things rationally, right? It is super rational for women who are doing 80% of the consumer spending in the country, almost always running the household. Like I joke that I'm the chief purchasing officer in our household. That they hand off some of that, and you can almost always hand off the financial piece to your guy if you're in a traditional, relationship. So it gets handed off, not I think because of exclusion that factors into it a little bit because it's just efficient. When you've got kids running around, you can't do all the things. You have to share some responsibility.
Right.
And it's often the one that you can get a guy to pick up. So there's that piece that plays into it. But then what happens is the problem. Like there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with the division of labor in a household. The problem is when you have no transparency into what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that is dangerous. So even if all you get is a breakdown in your own damn credit score, that is a fantastic start to just a little bit of protection, little bit of your own money, your own credit score. Keep an eye on your own credit score because you can't rebuild that quickly. And debt can be devastating. And an understanding of where the money is and what the balances are.
Right. Absolutely.
That's baseline.
Mm-hmm. Now, Hussein had a nugget of information here. Thank you for sharing, Hussein. He says there's a highly personal planner who can read all political and economic events and build the plan accordingly. There are others who plan at the family level so that one spouse can at least cover the other's mess and keep the family financially secure. I mean, yes, there's
Hussein makes a great point. Like,
yeah. I mean, yeah.
There's a lot of that happens in families. And I think that one of the things that we underestimate in terms of having those conversations is that women actually, I will get some flamers, but there's quite a lot of data that women outperform as investors, not because they're like genius investors, but because they're more risk averse and they trade less frequently. So they trade because they're paying fewer transaction fees. They are not eating into their winnings as frequently as more active traders are, and more active traders tend to be men.
Sure.
So one of the things that's interesting about these perspectives, right? So women tend to be less risk averse. In a heterosexual relationship, you get this wonderful blend of strategic approaches. It's crazy not to use that to its fullest extent.
Absolutely.
Right? To Hussein's
my
point.
husband and I are very powerful when we go like buy something together because he's a very numbers oriented, detail oriented, and I'm the savvy negotiator. So together we make a very powerful team.
It's also a lot more fun. I say that like my favorite team sport is being married because, it was hard when we started out and, we were in our late 30s And we were trying to figure out how to collaborate in this way. But it's such a delight now that we have a foundation of doing that stuff together, because we are very, very, very different. We have very different, like completely diametrically opposed financial approaches. Mm-hmm. And it gives us, I think, a lot of strength. And so I would encourage everybody to start building that piece, not just because it'll build your financial security, but because it's fun.
Absolutely.
It gets fun. It doesn't maybe start out as fun.
Well, before we need to wrap up the show, we haven't even touched on benefits. We definitely... That's one of the things we want to talk about, that unsexy topic of benefits, which is actually really important. And instead of doing the mad scramble, which is normally what happens in our household, it's benefits time. Oh, crap. Oh, what do we do? I don't know. Pick the same thing we did last year. So,
let me talk about a few highlights in the few minutes we have left. Employers get great deals because they're buying on behalf of a group, right? They're like buying Costco benefits, right? Mm-hmm. They're not buying at the corner store one pack of bubble gum. And so they get rates you're not going to get on your own for things that might seem like, what do I do with this disability insurance? So I will say that the first thing to look at is life and disability offerings, because those are they can be, but they're, disability in particular can be super, super expensive. It's almost always the cheapest way to get it is through your employer. Mm-hmm. Your employer may cover 40%, 50%, 60%, maybe 70% if you're really in an awesome situation. But that is incredibly important if you rely on your income to pay your bills. So you should max that out, even if you have, to the degree that you can, because it is the number one thing that will protect all your other financial security throughout your earning lifetime.
Sure.
And it's overlooked because we all think, disability. The disability is not that people experience is typically not, like you get hit by a car or pregnancy or whatever. It's usually
something hidden. Like I know someone who he has an eye condition, and it's a very little known eye condition, and it could mean he can't work.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be carpal tunnel. It could be rheumatoid arthritis is actually the number one for women. And so there's a lot of things that are not obvious that can cripple a human body and make that very challenging to earn, And so there's lots of ways to do that. I would say, look at what you can afford through your employer plan and buy the most you can afford, because if you need it, it is a huge downside protection. The second one is term life insurance. Mm-hmm. Life insurance has this great benefit is that it can, if you pass away, it replaces your income for your family if you were still in your earning years. And if they don't need that money, it lifts them in wealth. So it's really cheap to buy through your employer. It can be a quick, term life can be a quick cash infusion into your family because it's tax-free. Mm-hmm. And there's this really wonderful benefit to buying it, to paying like a tiny amount for it. I call it very high leverage wealth, right? You pay a tiny amount for it. You get it without paying a dime of tax on it, unless you're a multi-millionaire. And then it can get used by your family in whatever way they need, or it can just generate wealth for organizations you care about, extended family members, whatever you want to do. Mm. So I think that's an important one to max out. And then the other big one, because we almost all get our healthcare through employers, is to figure out which of the plans you want. And I think that there's one piece that's a preference. Like I will always be a PPO person because I don't want to be told who my doctor is. I'm like, angsty about that. Mm-hmm. But there's also certain situations where if you prefer predictability, HMOs are great, right? If you have a chronic illness and you want to know exactly what you're paying to serve that chronic illness every year, or you're going to have a baby and you want to pay the least amount to have a baby.
Yeah, HSA may not be the way to go unless you have a very low threshold.
Well, an HMO is actually the way to go because you pay. My brother-in-law had a rare jaw cancer. They charged him $300 total for his cancer treatment in partnership with the university hospital. I mean, he got gold standard care, but his premiums are higher. To your point about HSAs, there's PPO plans which allow you to have some some choices, and depending on what's available in your area, the HMOs might be great. California has great HMOs. Georgia has great HMOs. Washington has great HMOs, but not everybody does. And so the HMOs might not be as exciting. PPOs can get you into having a little bit more choice. But the fun wealth trick is the high deductible plan plus the HSA. So HSAs, everyone thinks of them as a health savings account. I hate that label because it is the gold standard tax-free retirement and investment account.
And that's how my husband's using it too.
Oh,
nuts. Originally, I was like, what are you doing? We're supposed to use this for our stuff. How much money are you putting in here? And he's like, well, it's tax-free.
It's tax-free. It's tax-free to go in. It's tax-free to grow. If you take it out after you're 65, it's taxed like your IRA would be taxed. But if you take it out for any health expenses that you have incurred over the lifetime of having that account that maybe you've saved the receipts from, like IVF, I've spent a small fortune on IVF. You then pay it off. You can do those withdrawals tax-free and pay it off. So you're paying off prior medical bills with the tax-free earnings of the tax-free money
kind of brilliant,
invested 20 years ago.
Yeah. I want to get to David's question really quick before we get too far along. David asked, what are your thoughts on long-term care insurance?
I love this question, David. Long-term care is getting harder and harder to get in a reasonable way. Long-term care will be one of the biggest expenses that, somewhere between 50 and 60 people have at the end of their life. And long-term care is, could be anything from at-home health care that's occasional to full-on residential memory facility. I think it depends on a couple of things. I think you need to look up and see how it went down for the people in your parents' generation. If everybody in your parents' generation dropped dead at 55 from a heart attack, I would maybe consider not investing. But because it's really, really, really expensive. But if everyone in your family lived to be 90 and faced a slow decline, that could be a hint that this might be the path for you. We are bound by our genetics. You need to continually look into whether you can afford it and whether the payoff will be sufficient, because you don't want to buy it too early because it's so darn expensive, and you don't want to buy it too late because you can't get it. And so if you're in your 50s or your early 60s, that's a good time to look at whether the cost-benefit trade-off is something that you think makes sense. The other piece that factors into that is how much cash do you have, right? If you've got a $2 million term life insurance and $4 million of investments in the bank, don't spend the money on expensive insurance. I mean, make the right decision for you, but you can fund from different vehicles.
Right. Absolutely. And, for those of, my family historically didn't necessarily, basically what we had to do to get the care, because we did live a little bit longer, is they had to then gift all their assets well enough in advance to other family members with provision that they could, like for my grandparents, that they could live in the house as long as they were alive, that sort of thing. Right. So there was other ways to handle it, and it requires a lot of trust. And you can get a lawyer to draft up something that gives you the security you want at that later stage in life, if you have that ability. Like for my mother, it would be similar. Like I would assume her assets with the knowledge that she has absolute, complete access to those assets for as long as she lives, as long as it meets the criteria for the state in case she does need to be, heaven forbid, put into more of a care facility. Right? Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of legal stuff that can play into your, like, that one ensures that you've got, that it's being used for what you want it to be used for. So you absolutely have to involve both a lawyer, hopefully your accountant, and maybe also a financial planner. That's a really good time to hire somebody just on a project basis. Because there's a lot of stuff you can do. And if you're not careful, you can disqualify yourself from certain benefits that can make things a lot more expensive than they need to be. That's a great point, Erin. I love it. Yeah. Thank you for asking that, David. We really appreciate that. So we're We have had a really interesting conversation. I could keep talking about this. I mean, because there's so many layers and so many things to keep in mind. And it's very interesting and intriguing because there are so many things we don't really consider, like the HSA being this opportunity to put away money for medical purposes that later on in life, maybe you don't need to worry about, right? And it can fund other things.
Or it can fund a vacation or your beach house.
Yeah.
That's my plan.
If you're willing to pay the taxes when it comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But it can be held for tax-free. So that's good. Right. Yeah. Anything else you want to share, Claire, that's burning, something maybe we didn't touch on that's really important before we wrap up the show?
I would just say, be mindful of who you take your insurance advice from. There are huge incentives within the insurance industry for people to sell you insurance, particularly expensive insurance. I think that one of my favorite people, Tiffany Aliche, who's known as the Budgetnista. If you want to read her book, Get Good with Money, it's an excellent 101. She has a line in there that's like, unless you've got Beyonce money, you don't need whole or universal life. And she's really true. It's a fantastic wealth and tax vehicle, but it gets sold to people in a pretty, I would say, aggressive way is a nice way to put it. People for whom it might not be appropriate. And it's generally got fairly low return. It's generally not tax preferred. There's a lot of red tape. I'm very wealthy and I don't even have one because I don't think that they perform unless you're really maxing out every other tax loophole you can. But they get sold very, very, very aggressively. So I would say look at what the incentives are. If you're thinking about hiring a financial advisor, the first thing you should ask them is how do they get paid? And you should also look for someone with a CFP because they have a fiduciary standard that requires that they put you first.
Well, this is really good information because a lot of people don't really know. I mean, so-and-so recommended blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right? So that is important. And knowing how they get paid is, let's face it, people perform to their metrics, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So you want to know, just like buying a car, like how's a salesman get called? Well, commission on just commission on the vehicle, right? So they're going to try to get you the most expensive vehicle with some exceptions. I'll have to say there are some exceptions. Some are looking on a longer term. But it's been a pleasure having you on the show, Claire. It's been so much fun talking about this unsexy topic, which I think is actually a lot of fun and very interesting. If you do have any questions for Claire, please reach out to AskFlossie.com. That's AskFlossie.com. You will find her there. She's got a wealth of information, tools, knowledge. I think you have a blog as well. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's this podcast. And if you do have any questions for either one of us, feel free to reach out. David says that's great advice. Thank you so much. Thank you for being on the show. And friends, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure sharing space with you. It's been a pleasure, of course, having you on the show, Claire. And until next time, my friends, keep elevating. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in on the Career Coffee Chat podcast. It's been a pleasure. Feel free to reach out to me. My email is coacheurban@gmail.com or tweet at coacheurban, Instagram coach.eurban, or reach out to my Facebook group, Elevate Your Career. So I'd love to learn more about you, hear your insights, and what questions you have. You can find out more about me at coacheurban.com. And don't forget, please do reach out on LinkedIn. You can find me at Erin Urban. Until next time, cheers. Here's to caffeinating your career.